Hi, you guys. It's Anna. This is Pilates Matt. So today we're going to get a little bit wild with props. We're going to use the fitness ring in studio, and I anticipate most of us probably don't have a fitness ring at home. So what you can do is you can sub your fitness ring for either a ball or a block for some of the exercises. Or if you don't have a ball or block and you have a band, you can also sub the band in for some of the stuff, and I'll kind of talk as we go through. If you have one band, you're going to want to have, well, you're going to tie it at some point. So we'll have it looped, and the distance that we would want is about with your legs together. So if you've got two bands, that would be like the nicest strategy. If you don't have any props, you can still do all the moves. But we'll get a little wild. So we'll start standing. Let's just do a little warm up. And then we'll just do a little rotation, just nice and easy. Just swing in the arms from side to side, letting all of your joints rotate. Ankles, knees, hips. Kind of noticing, is your neck involved here? If you can look all the way back over your shoulder. And then, are you breathing? And how's your breath? And especially when we're working our abs, we want to promote that nice three-dimensional breath. So we're really breathing into the back and the side of our body, and it will help us gain a little bit more proprioception too. And then just kind of come down to center here. Let's just do some shoulder rolls. So just rolling up and back. We're going to play with some inner thighs and, well, core as always, and some shoulder blade movement today. And then reverse it. So just thinking of those shoulder blades sliding towards your spine. We're getting a little bit of protraction and retraction. Noticing that they can slide and glide on the rib cage, so they get a little sticky, especially if we're doing any like push-up kind of motion. So elbow bending in general. Nice, then we'll take just a couple roll downs. So just nodding the chin, bring the feet in a little bit closer, rotating the crown of the head towards the ground. Your arms can be on your legs for more support, or maybe just dangling. When you're at the bottom, take a nice breath in. Notice if you're locked in your knees and your weight's in your heels, so if you can bring the weight forward a bit. And then push through the balls of the feet, scoop the abs, and drag your spine all the way back up. And let's just do a nice sweep of the arms to the ceiling, just to stretch that fascia between our waist and our shoulders. And we'll roll it down again. So see if you can keep the weight even through the feet during the entire process of the roll down. And that might mean that you need to bend your legs a little bit. Bring that weight forward. If you catch yourself in your heels, push through the balls of your feet, lift your abs, and drag it up. And sweeping the arms overhead, maybe looking up. We'll do one more like this. So your legs should feel pretty active when you're in this roll down and standing position. Easy breath here, relaxing the back of the neck if you hold a bit of tension there under the skull. And then pushing through the feet, scooping the abs. And one last little sweep up. So we kind of built a sense of our standing posture just with that roll down. So you can take your band if you have a band. If you don't, you can do these movements just with your weight of your arms or maybe some small weights. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my elbows by my sides and my palms will be up. And I'm going to be holding the band, but I'll kind of show this position here. And then all I'm going to do is come into external rotation and retraction. So I'm just trying to fire right through that middle back. So kind of where your like racer back line would be. And if I've got my band, I can choose my tension, obviously. So more or less you adjust, and then exhale, you're just gonna pull the band apart, finding some external rotation. So we're just connecting into the shoulder blades and just noticing sometimes when we change planes, it's hard to recognize where they're living. So when we're like lying on our back or when we're on hands and knees, it can get a little tricky. So sometimes breaking it down into your standing posture, right? Or you could do this seated too, and just finding a little retraction through those shoulder blades. Just want to bring a little awareness in. And then as you're doing this, do you notice the weight shift in your feet? So it should feel like a bit of core work and like you can stay really stable through the whole surface area of the foot. And then on the next one, you're going to reach your arms out. So again, it's okay, don't have a band, go palms up for me. And then we're going to do the same thing. It's a little bit more work. You're going to pull as you exhale and return. And you might notice a bigger shift in this one, where there's maybe like a tendency to shift the hips or kind of offset with the shoulders. This should feel like quite a bit of core work.
So this is kind of one of those postural balance pieces where what holds my spine up straight is actually my abs and my shoulder blade muscles, right? So upper back versus core is going to hold my trunk. And instead of initiating kind of from the front of the chest, you're still finding that little woo retraction. Think of like birds' wings or like butterfly wings. The source is behind your upper back. Just noticing if the weight's shifting. Just try one more like this. Yeah, nice. And then you can ditch this guy. We'll come to the back of the mat. We're just gonna take a little roll down here and we'll walk out to hands and knees. If you need a kneeling pad, you can grab one or fold your mat. And then once you've found your hands under your shoulders and your hips in a neutral position, let's take 3 cat-cows. So we're gonna round the spine, pushing away, scooping the abs here, kind of like that roll down we just did. And then can you keep your core engaged as you extend your chest forward? So remember, this movement is a lot about your pelvis. So my pelvis is scooping, it's like my imprint in a sense. And then I'm opening my sits bones wide. So it would be like if you're going back into a squat or like a sit to stand. And then my core is making sure my organs, right, don't fall out. So that would be dramatic. You can imagine that here. So notice that this is spinal movement and you're getting some shoulder blade movement here too, right? And then when you come back to neutral, see if you can take a couple shoulder blade isolations. So just like you did with the band, I'm gonna let my chest fall through my arm. So there's my retraction. And then I'm pushing, and maybe I go a little past neutral into some protraction. And just kind of explore that range. Now you just did your cat-cow, so notice if it's your spine moving versus, right, so we can get a little like exaggerated with our ribs. You will have so you're sinking, and then we'll watch those elbows here too, and then pushing away. So the movement isn't created by elbow bending, right, or by spinal movement. It's a pretty tricky move and it's pretty small, so just kind of building that awareness. So once you've played with that for a moment, stabilize through center, bring one arm out to the side. So you're gonna have your fingertips down. See if you can retract your shoulder blade as you reach that arm up, and then tap it back down. And we'll just do that 4 more times. So I'm definitely pushing out of my supporting arm. Lots of support in my core and my hips here too. But here's that same retraction that you just worked. One more. And then switch sides. So we'll stabilize through that supporting arm. Sweep the other arm out. You're gonna have your palms down. Retract first. So even though I can visually see my fingers lifting, it's not the source of the movement, right? The source is my middle back. And the more you can find your shoulder blade, you might find your core turns on a little bit better. A good correlation is when you have more core support, you might find that the shoulder works actually easier. You get one more like this. Nice, and then let's come off our hands and knees for a moment. So you can cross your ankles and flip. So one more plane. So here, if you've got your fitness ring, if you're here in studio, you know, no one likes this. Or you can use your ball as well. So if you've got a ball or a yoga block, we're gonna roll all the way down onto our back. So you can do all of this movement with your ball at home or nothing, right? You can also do this propless. So with the fitness ring, you feel free to do athletic grip. So you don't have to go fingers long. You can grip that guy if you'd like. Here's your protraction, retraction. So I'm gonna push the ring or the ball to the ceiling, and then I'm gonna draw my shoulder blades back down. And just see if you can find, we've changed planes, so gravity is working a little bit differently on us here. See if you can explore that movement. And then notice that nothing else in your torso or your pelvis changes, right? I think that we're used to kind of, in movement in general, and maybe it's just us as humans, we wanna show that we're doing it, so we tend to overdo it a little bit. But the rib cage doesn't move, the pelvis doesn't move, the hips aren't gripping, so just, and take an exhale, little body scan. See if you can just move the shoulder blades as you push that ring or ball to the ceiling, and then let it return back down. So it's a little bit of core awareness. Shouldn't feel like it's super hard just yet. So pause here. Once your shoulders are resting on the mat, find a little bit of core engagement. We're gonna reach the arms overhead without letting the ribs pop or the back pop, and then exhale, draw the ring back up to the ceiling. And we'll do this a couple times. So you can inhale to sweep the ring overhead or the ball overhead, and exhale, draw the ring back up. So now it should feel like there is a little bit more core engagement here. Like you might find your obliques have to work a little bit harder to keep the ribs from popping. Notice that it's just your core and it doesn't turn into the hips gripping or the toes gripping. Nice. And then on this next one, we're going to keep it neutral. We're going to take this into a crunch. So I'm going to take a nice breath in. As I exhale, I'm going to curl up, just kind of gazing towards the knees, and then lengthen and lower back down. And we'll do a couple of these guys. So again, you could be holding that ball. You could be completely free of props. And so what I like about sometimes watching a prop, especially when we're engaging through our shoulder blades, is you can really check in and notice that your head is actually nodding, your chin's nodding before you lift. And this can help your cervical spine if you tend to be a little bit of a tucker, or if you're not quite sure where to look, follow your prop and your fingertips here. We're in neutral, so we're just making sure we don't tuck. So you can take that little extra check and just peek down at your hips. Should feel pretty evenly weighted from side to side. Right, so we're challenging both ends. Here's our, can I keep my pelvis steady without tucking when I curl up? And then can I keep my pelvis steady and my rib steady when I reach my arms overhead? We'll just do one more like this. And then you can reach that ring back up to the ceiling, walk your feet out a little wider, and just take a little windshield wiper. So just letting your knees fall from side to side. Kind of checking out the hips. How are they feeling? And then walk those feet in again. So we're going to come into our imprint position. So here's where my obliques are drawing my hips towards my ribs. My hip bones are drawing towards one another. So a bit of core scoop here. So you can actually squeeze into the ring or the ball. As you exhale, float one leg to tabletop, and then lower that leg down. Take a breath in. Exhale, squeeze into that ring or ball, and then draw the opposite leg up. So we're starting just with these leg lifts, and this is your test. So again, is anything shifting? So I've set my imprint, so I'm going to make sure my ribs don't pop, my abs don't pop, and my back doesn't pop. A huge component will be that supporting leg side. So if my supporting leg's kind of wandering off and doing its own thing, we're going to have to brace somewhere to adjust for that change. And the more you squeeze into your ring or ball, you should feel like your abs actually work a little harder, which is kind of fun. So the next time your right leg is up, if you want to make this harder, take a breath in, exhale, float your left leg up. So now we'll exhale, take our toe taps here. So same rules apply. We just like upped the load a little bit more in our core. We're squeezing the ring. We're tapping without losing that imprint position and without that supporting leg going anywhere. If you want to make this harder, because who doesn't, you can either reach your arms overhead or you could start to tap a little further. So kind of a good combination here. Right, so the further overhead, the more I'm challenging that upper imprint with the arms. I'm challenging the low core a little bit if I'm going to tap in a more extended position. And we'll go for 4 and 3. Last 2. And last 1, making sure that you feel even. Bring your legs back to tabletop. We're going to take some crunches here. So you're going to inhale and exhale, nodding the chin, curling up, reaching that ring over your knees, ball over your knees, and then lengthening back down. Yeah, and if you need to adjust your range of motion, like maybe the arms don't go all the way overhead, maybe they just reach up to the ceiling. Nodding the chin before you lift the head. So now we're working that imprint, which usually for most of us is going to be on the way back down actually, that it becomes a little harder not to pop through the ribs. If you want to make this harder, you can always extend the legs a little further away. We're going to take 3 more here. Keep squeezing that ring or that ball. Last 2. And you get 1 more here. Nice, and then you can bend your legs in here, set your feet down one at a time. So we're gonna put the ring or ball in between our thighs here, right, or yoga block. And it's a little wide, right? So you can always walk your feet a little further out. We're gonna squeeze into that ring, and then we're gonna take our shoulder bridge articulation. So hip rolls here. You can have your hands down, you can have your arms up. We'll take a few rounds finding some articulation, maybe arms floating by the ears, right? That's always a fun way to challenge, in particular, if you have a temptation to rib pop. And for hip rolls, remember this is all about extension. So it's really about getting your posterior chain, glutes and hammies on versus like a big back arch. And hopefully you are starting to feel glutes, hammies, and some inner thigh. Feet are just relaxed. If the toes want to grip, see if you can release the toes. It's kind of our flexor system. We don't want to get into that. And then on the next one, we'll stay up. So we'll meet up in our shoulder bridge. Whether your arms are down or up, we're going to take a breath in, take 10 pulses into the ring or the ball. You've got 8. Watch those ribs. For 6, get the hips up just a little higher by scooping the abs. For 3, 2, 1, and then you can roll it all the way down. Nice. You can take the ring or ball out. We're gonna go into a little more core work. So we'll come back into our imprint position here. We'll reach the arms up to the ceiling again. You can give that ball or circle a little squeeze. Float one leg to tabletop. Float your second leg to tabletop. So we're gonna do a little twist. So as we twist, I'm gonna let my arms go to the right as my legs go to the left, but I'm gonna keep my knees squeezing together so I don't get to shear in my pelvis. Then I'm gonna come back through center, exhale, and then try the other side. So the more you squeeze into the ring, the further you'll probably be able to go, which is kind of fun. It's like the more you activate the abs, it's like a secret kind of motivated torture. And then we really want to make sure, so we're allowing that top hip to lift so that the knees don't shear, because when the knees shear, that means our pelvis is shearing. Yeah, nice. We'll try one more each way. Squeezing, drawing those legs back to center. Last one here. We're gonna come into a bicycle with rotation. So I'm gonna start with my arms just hovering overhead by my ears, still in my imprint position. As I curl up, I'm gonna extend my left leg and I'm gonna reach over outside of my right thigh, exhaling and inhaling and exhaling to switch. So I'm taking my little oblique bicycles here, right? You can adjust your angle. So maybe I go a little higher if I want a little support. Maybe I go a little bit lower if I want a little more core. Kick into your glutes. So the lower your leg goes, you can use more of that bum, upper hamstring insertion. Yeah, keep squeezing. You've got 4, 3, last 2, last 1. Nice, you can take a little rest. You can hug your legs into your chest for a moment. So if you've got the ring or if you have a band, you can take a little leg stretch here. So we'll bend the left leg and we'll pop the right foot in your pad. You can do over grip or under grip, and we can take some knee pumps. So flexing and extending. You're also welcome to lengthen this leg. As you guys take this, I'm just gonna show the band version. Right, yoga strap band. Same but different. You can pin your elbows on the mat. I love to do pinkies out, palms facing in. It's a little nicer on the wrist, and I can take my stretches here. And if all else fails, you also have that clasp behind the thigh. So we'll take one more stretch on this side, and then we'll swap that leg out. So we'll switch to the other side. You got hand band and circle. Right, long leg or bent leg on the other side. We're just gonna get some length here. So we're actively mobilizing. Notice the more you flex your foot, the more exciting it becomes. In particular, maybe calf and back of knee. Just kind of noticing the differences from side to side. So we're gonna take this into some scissors. So, and then we'll go into a double leg stretch just so you kind of know what's going on next. So come back into that imprint. We'll take that ring again to the ceiling, give it a little squeeze. I'm gonna float maybe the opposite leg from what you normally do up to tabletop, and then bring my second leg to meet it. So you can keep your head down and you can just squeeze the ring, or you can come up into your ab prep. And then you're gonna kick your right leg to the ceiling, left leg long.
And then you're just gonna alternate legs, exhaling, finding your scissor. Now I can keep my scissor small, right, trying to pass through the center, or I can make my scissor really big, still try to pass through the center of your range. Now if you want more still, maybe you reach that ring overhead. You're still squeezing it though. We're just gonna do 6 more sets here. For 5, and 4, and 3, keeping those hips steady. Still an imprint for 2. Last set. We're gonna reach the hands or ring over your feet. You're in your imprint in a nice little ball here. I'm gonna kick my legs out and reach my arms overhead. Exhaling. Inhale when you come to center. Put that ring at your ankles and then kick out. Same move, ring exchanges. So we're inhaling through center. Pass it back to your hands. Exhale. Inhale through center. Right head can be down this whole time. You get just a nice little hold if you don't have any props. Nice. How's the breath? It got quiet. Try one more each way. No time for breathing. And then you can grab that ring, roll your head all the way down. You can set that guy off to the side, collar band. Give your legs a nice little squeeze here. You can take some circles. We'll take this into a twist. So both legs bent in tabletop is kind of the first version. You can let your legs fall to the left and your right arm's gonna sweep out. If you want more of a stretch, just lengthen that bottom leg long. Yeah, if you've got some kind of SI stuff going on, I would recommend probably just keeping those legs stacked. You can always adjust into flexion by bringing your knees higher if that feels good, or a little more extension by lowering the legs. So that might be an adjustment you explore instead of the bottom leg long. Just take a couple breaths here, breathing into the shoulder. Little body scan, kind of where is the stretch talking to you the most? Can you really let your head rest on the mat? And then we'll gently draw those legs back in. We'll try the other side. So again, you can do tabletop, adjust your height. Left arm's gonna be in opposition, maybe lengthening that bottom leg. You can always use that top hand to help support the top thigh if you feel like you have to grip through that hip flexor to keep that leg crossed. I'm just kind of finding we're asymmetrical, so you might find you need a different variation from side to side, and that's totally reasonable. Kind of follow what your body is requesting, what it's kind of craving. Just let your head get heavy. And then just gently coming back to your bent leg position. So we'll do a little flexion again. So if you have the ring, you're gonna pop the ring on the outside of your thighs. Now, if you don't have the ring, you're gonna stick the ball or the block on the inside of your thighs. So you've got those options here. So we'll do the same movement, whether you have the ball on the inside or the ring on the outside. Bring those feet a little closer so you get more glute activation. You're just gonna press the hips up. So a little shoulder bridge, easy, just a little press, finding that position right away all at once, and then setting everything back down. So it's a crease at the hips. It's like your sit to stand. You can think about here's my standing position, breaking at the hip joint like you're doing a squat, and then pushing back up. This one gets really tricky in the sense that a lot of times we like to overarch through the back. So maybe having thumbs on ribs and like pinkies on your hip crest, and see if you can keep that distance the same so that we're not arching on the way back down. Okay, it's gonna get more exciting after the next 2. Hips nice and square, right? Watching for kind of putting too much weight in the neck or the upper back. We'll hold on this next one. So what we're gonna do, whether you're squeezing the ball or pressing out into the ring, we're gonna shift our weight to the left hip and we're gonna lift the right heel up. And then lower that heel down, shift the weight into the right, lift the left heel. So try this just a couple times. So we're still trying to stay relatively symmetrical, right? Torso length, my hips are still shining and towards the ceiling. If this is feeling where you want to stay, then you can hang out here. If you want a little more excitement, the next time you're gonna go to shift to put weight on your left leg, you're gonna extend your right leg out. So you have to either squeeze into the ball or press into the ring, lower that leg down, and then try the other side. Yeah, and once you're maybe feeling like, okay, this isn't quite as scary as I thought it would be, float those arms up. So you're still having to use, what I like about this exercise is you're still having to use the leg that's lifting. Whether you're squeezing the ball or pressing out into the ring, your lifting side does not kind of vacation here. And we'll just try one more each way. Nice, and then you can reach your arms all the way overhead. Just rest them on the ground and roll your spine all the way down, one vertebrae at a time. Nice. All right, we'll take the ring or the ball. We're gonna put it in between our ankles and roll to our side. So I've got this kind of a setup here. And I would recommend flexing your feet for the least prop drama. All right, so lying down, whatever's most comfortable for your head. We're gonna take little squeezes. So again, you can squeeze down with your top leg into your ball, even into your block, engaging, finding outer hip, a little bit of glute and hammy, and some inner thigh. So just gentle little squeezes down. And I typically will just kind of do a steady rhythm. You can exhale each time you pulse if you want to do that, but you certainly don't need to. It's good to kind of play with our breath to where we can feel like we can inhale or exhale or have kind of a non-committal breath and still activate a muscle. When we get into like really crazy habit change, sometimes it's actually not super productive. And then on the next one, we're gonna hold the squeeze. Maybe you start with fingertips just in front as a little support. Don't forget about your bottom obliques here. Bottom leg's on, you're gonna float the whole thing up. And on the head break, you're not gonna go super, super high. You'll notice, or you'll put a lot of weight on that bottom side. There's gonna be a natural kind of weight exchange. Maybe arm overhead for a little more excitement. Yeah. And we'll do one more like this. Nice. Okay, you can take that guy away for now and just come back to your side. We're gonna do some internal, external rotation. So we'll float the leg up to hip height. And then remember that rotation's coming from your hip. So it's my thigh and my hip socket. I'm gonna tap my toes forward as I turn my leg in. Then I'm gonna make a little rainbow, rotate and tap my heel back. So just kind of keeping an eye on, is it my foot doing all the movement or is it my hip? And if you notice that you can't quite maybe tap to the front or tap to the back without the hips doing a big roll, then that's okay, just indicate that tap. Because that might just be kind of as the range of motion that you're working with right now. I'm just breathing here. Yeah, nice, you guys. Just checking in with any neck tension. Typically, if we've got some bracing somewhere, it's either maybe core needs to turn on a little bit more or maybe our padding setup needs to be a little bit different. Maybe we're not getting quite enough support in the neck. And then just to toast this a little more, take your leg back up to hip height and then float it back so it's kind of on that back diagonal of your mat or your imaginary yoga mat. And then take some circles here. Just really want to get that posterior chain on. As you're circling, just notice if that knee wants to bend. And then reverse your circles. And then breathe. Yeah, you've got that whole expansive backside of the body totally available, so don't forget to use it. And then take a little rest. Nice. Let's flip to the other side. Do a full rearrange so you guys can see. And I'm just gonna demo the ball version on this side. So if I've got my ball or my block, same but different. We'll lie all the way down. Yeah, so get comfy, right? Kind of check in different sides. So might have to think about something a little different on this side. Bottom obliques for sure. Find a good neck position. Little squeezes. So just engaging with that outer hip Deep inner thigh, definitely upper glute and hamstring. Sometimes our feet like to try to do our hips work, which we appreciate their attempts. But we want to keep it in the hips first. So if a dead foot or like a flexed foot is better, if it keeps you out of the shin, being the driver, maybe a hand, tactile feedback is really helpful for our brains. Maybe hand on the bum. And then just noticing, right, has my tension? Any of my alignment shifted? On this next one, we'll pause. Maybe again, you want to go fingertips just to kind of give yourself a little kind of nervous system feedback, and we'll float the legs up. And so definitely, right, instead of a pulling from the top side of the torso, it's a lengthening and a pushing. So I've got my inner thigh really working on my bottom leg, kind of helping with that lifting and lengthening, and then the whole outer hip. So you want to get longer versus trying to pull at the top side of the waist. Should take it out of the back if we feel the back engaging a little bit. It's going to be pretty small range of motion. Try about 2 more like this. Yeah, nice, you guys. And then you can ditch your prop. So whether it's your ball or your ring, we'll float that top leg up. My bottom leg's still really engaged, and we'll take our rainbow. So you're going to turn the whole thigh in, tap the toes forward, turn the whole thigh out, tap the heel back. And we're just going to try to keep the knee from bending. So if it means that we don't get quite as far back or front, that's okay. I'm just keeping an eye on the bottom side of the torso, get those obliques on. We're still breathing. The more we can breathe into the back and the side of the body, should feel like the work gets a little bit easier. And we'll do 1 more like this. And then float that leg to hip height again. You're going to kick it back to the back corner of your yoga mat, and then take some circles here, right? And remember, driving from the hip. So it's always from the source. We're thinking and then reverse it. Keep it nice and sweepy. Worked, right? So it's supporting us too. Keep it sweepy. Let's go for 3. Take a little rest. Nice. Okay, so we're gonna do some full roll-ups. I'm gonna grab my fitness ring for this one in particular. If you have a band, a nice variation. So we're gonna kind of try 2 different ways with a feedback for our, so if you have a fitness ring, you can just use the fitness ring. Yep, sorry, good note. So we're gonna do a pushing. So I'm actually gonna push into the ring, and then we're also gonna do a pulling. So if you have a ball, you can do your squeeze when we are pushing into the ring. And if you have a band, you can pull for when we're pulling the ring. So we're gonna do 5 with the pushing and then 5 with the pulling. So that's our no fitness ring setup. And we'll start with pushing. So keeping those legs bent, right, for a little bit easier version. Long, if you're ready, you're gonna push. I'm pushing, 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 and it's like I'm gonna squeeze that ring. And then I can reach my arms overhead, and then I'm gonna bring the ring up, right, following the ring. Here's where I'm gonna push, 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 yeah. And then you can go for a little stretch. And we'll just do 4 more like that. And we just wanna make sure if you've got hyperextension through your elbow joint, that you're not locking your hands straight. You can always do long fingers, right? That's totally fine. We just wanna watch for overextending that joint if you've got some laxity there. And if you're working on your roll up and this is not a helpful tool, you got 1 more pushing. I'm just gonna show the prep. You can also use your hands behind, and then pressing your arms, you can grab your legs to come back up. Nice, so for the next 5, now we're gonna pull. So if you're switching to your band, we're gonna try to pull the ring apart. So I'm pulling, 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 pulling. And this is just info for you. Does the feedback give you more assistance or make the roll up more challenging?
We've got 4 more here. And you're still thinking of your shoulder blades. So when we're doing flexion, we're more likely to protract. So we want to make sure that our arms are coming with us on the roll down. It can get really easy to get kind of stuck here as we're rolling down. We do want our arms to come with us, but we have a natural amount of protraction, so a little bit of spreading of the shoulder blades away from our spine when we roll down versus when we're in a flat back position, so like a deadlift. So we're gonna roll all the way up on the last one here. And then we'll bend the legs. So we're gonna come into a little half roll back. So again, you could ditch the prop and just have your arms forward. We're gonna take a little, so we're gonna do a little bit of a press into the ring here, or the ball. And we're just gonna roll back to about like the top of the pants, take a nice breath in, and then exhale to curl back up. If you want, you can go knees together, as long as that feels okay in the hips, right? If that's not feeling super groovy, you can go hip distance. So this is pelvis, right? Here's your cat-cow, here's my imprint, pelvis, and then my ribs flex to come back up. And hopefully you're feeling how when we close the chain in the arms, whether we're using the ball or the ring or the band, we actually get a little bit more oblique work, right? Lats are like our back door to our abs, which is pretty cool. And the next one, we're gonna pause and we're gonna stay. Take a nice breath in. We're gonna exhale, reach the ring overhead, and then draw that ring back down. And you've got 4 more like this. Yeah, so we're trying to keep the pelvic position and the neck position the same, but we're allowing the shoulder blades to move. And then you can come all the way up. Okay, on this next one, we're gonna roll back again. Find a position you can maintain. If you start to get a little arched here, just curl up a little higher so you have a little more assistance. This time we're gonna rotate, exhaling to the right, inhaling and exhaling to the left. Now notice if you're, just like we did our earlier spine twist, are the knees wanting to shear? So even if the knees aren't squeezed together, can you keep the weight even through the pelvis? We'll do 1 more each way. And then you can come all the way up. You can set that prop down for a moment. Walk your feet out a little wider. Hands if you want more support. Or no hands for your windshield wipers. Just kind of exploring. If that internal rotation or external rotation is challenging, think of kind of like sucking your thighs into your hip sockets. So the more neutral we are, the easier it will be to find full rotation. We'll just do 1 more each way. Nice. Yeah, I gotta love that internal rotation. Okay, so we're gonna do a little prep here. You guys know this one. Hands behind your thighs. We're gonna roll back to that same position. So I'm gonna, again, goal is to keep myself in the C curve. So I really wanna watch out for popping into a vertical spine. And I'm gonna float 1 leg up and lower back down, and then try the other side. So I can really use my arm against my leg if I need the assistance. And I want to point out too, again, it's all about, so this is deep, deep hip flexor leg, deep psoas. The thigh is what's lifting, right? So knee extension is a different movement. It's still important, but for this, we're going to go for deep hip. Maybe no arms would be the next piece. Yeah, if you're going no arms, maybe you're going to twist towards the leg you're lifting. So we're just kind of compounding this really, really deep hip work. And if you get frustrated, that's very natural. So just embrace the frustration of deep hip work. Remember to breathe. Right sigh is like our parasympathetic nervous system's natural way to calm down. So, oh yeah, not my favorite move. Okay, we're just gonna do 1 more each way. Super valuable. And then you can lengthen your legs out, give them a little shake. Nice, you guys, that's a tough one. So whether you have your ball or your fitness ring, we're gonna do a little spine stretch forward. So you can have your legs out, kind of mat to like a little wider. Find, knees bent, find the most comfortable position where you feel like you can sit as upright as possible. If you've got a pad, you could always grab one of those guys. If you have your fitness ring, you're gonna bring it out in front of you. If you don't have your fitness ring, you can take the ball out in front of you. We're just gonna do a little spine stretch forward. So I'm keeping my pelvis neutral. I'm gonna nod my chin, just like your roll down. And if I've got the ball, I'm gonna roll the ball out, take a breath in, and then exhale to scoop and roll back up. If you've got your ring, you're gonna press down into the ring. So I'm gonna exhale, press down, find my core, scoop the core, push into the ring to come back up. Yeah, try a couple of these. Spine stretch forward is weird because there's not a lot of range of motion. But noticing the difference between my pelvis is staying steady, right? So my pelvis is steady, it's my spine that's rounding. So I'm scooping in constantly as if someone was like holding a flame up to my belly button. And I'm gonna push into the ring or pull that ball back as I restack. And you could do this without any props, right? This is spinal movement. So pelvis is staying steady. You're having to work low back and low core to stabilize. And this is the beginning of your roll down, your standing roll down. And for some of us, they can get really nervy because our spines don't have a lot of mobility. So if it feels like, ooh, like a little tingly or you get really tired from doing this, maybe you just want to do it a little bit more. Let's do one more here. And then pressing into that ring, coming all the way back up. Nice. Okay. Let's come into combo teaser with our, so we'll do fitness ring if you've got it. We're gonna come into our teaser. So let me take it back a step. Teaser holding, right? That's our first piece. So if I can hold my teaser, maybe this is, you guys do the advanced version. But that's the first version. So you're gonna work on this if you're working on that. If you're already like teasers, great, I'm good to go. You're gonna float your legs up with your ring. Yeah, and then you're gonna do a little bit of arm movement with my ring. Yeah, see? I guess I have to do the hard one. Nice, yeah. So same piece, but 1,000 times harder. Can I move my ring and my shoulders without losing my teaser position? And we can always extend the legs, right? We can always reach the arms a little bit further back. We're gonna go for 4, right? And you can also do your half back version. You need to take your feet down. 2, last one. And then you can take a little rest. Nice, ditch that prop off to the side. So let's come on to hands and knees. Cross our ankles here. So just for a little shoulder blade reset, take a couple of those scap isolations and then we're gonna go into some down dogs. So we're just gonna find, again, separating spinal movement from our shoulder blade movement. So I'm letting my chest fall, shoulder blades retract, and then I push away. Once you found that, find your neutral. So we're not sinking, but we're really supporting by pressing out of the ground. Then we're gonna sweep opposite fingers and toes. Maybe they stay on the ground, maybe they float up, and then bringing it back in. Yeah, nice. We'll just alternate sides here. Keep kind of an eye on that head position. Generally kind of looking just in front of the fingers is a pretty good strategy, like, or nail kind of tips. And we'll try one more each way. Nice, and then we're gonna play with a baby push-up. It can be a full push-up, but we're gonna start with the baby push-up. So you're gonna bring your hands underneath your shoulders, right? Just notice, for most of us, we set up pretty narrow. We wanna set up our hands wider than our shoulders typically, so give yourself some space. So if your mat is inhibiting it, I would say take your hands off the mat is a good strategy if the edge of the mat is bothersome. So once your shoulders are stacked over your wrists, stay in your quadruped position. So we're gonna take the weight out of this. So you get to add a little retraction before your elbow bend. Then you'll press through the arms to come back up. So what I want you to notice, because sometimes we can get into this place where we bend our elbows and our shoulders never move, right? Which isn't super healthy. So we're gonna add that slight retraction to precede the elbow bend and then press it back up. So we wanna feel that slide. Elbows are just kind of generally going in a natural, like 45-degree angle. you know, think somewhere in this kind of range. We don't want them to go up super out to the sides because then we're going to get an internal rotation. So kind of take them, you know, around this 45-degree angle. Does that kind of make sense, you guys, the retraction piece? So if you want to make it a little harder, you could add your kneeling, and you could try a couple kneeling push-ups, right? You still don't think of all your alignment, your core is on, you're just adding a little heat here, shoulder blades, slide and glide, right? Don't go super low if you feel like you lose the position in your spine, and that includes your cervical spine. So maybe I'm just gonna go to where my elbows are to my sides. And I would say, you know, kind of start with these guys, and then, of course, you can always take this to your full push-up, but this is a great place to kind of examine the form. And for a lot of us, either cervical spine or the shoulder blades aren't always in the optimal position. And then option, of course, if you want, you can take your full push-up with legs wide. I'm still finding that little retraction, but maybe I only take it to where my elbows are just at my sides. And we'll just try like 1 or 2 more play, whichever position. And then you can take a little child's pose. Nice, yeah. So baby push-ups are awesome because they teach our shoulder blades the way we want them to move. So nice, easy breath here. And we'll make our way all the way onto our bellies for this next piece. If you have your ring or your ball, you can add this in. The hardest part is getting into it. So you might need to do a little like maneuver while you're wandering down. Or if you're feeling like you've got that reach, you've got some options here to get into it. And this is, again, always the most exciting part. Holding onto your prop. And I think my prop's against me today. So when your feet are relatively towards the ceiling, it's a little elusive. You can rest your forehead on your hands. If you don't want to deal with the prop, you can also flex your feet and just put your heels together. So I'm going to find my core. I'm going to squeeze my glutes and then squeeze the ring and try to hover my knees off the ground. Kind of a 3-step process. Abs, bum, and hamstring. Wee little float. You'll notice it's lower hamstring too, right? You feel how the lower hamstring gets a little excitement in there. Nice. And you'll definitely feel some weight in this one in particular. The weight does shift into the hips because we're lifting the thighs. We just want to make sure it doesn't feel like the low back is taking the loads. If your low back feels like it's lifting, then I would say find your core and just see if you can squeeze your bum without actively really tucking the pelvis under. And try one more like this. And you can take your ball or your ring out and then take just a couple hovers. So we're gonna go like flying squirrel, hands by your sides. Here's your shoulder blade moment. Can I wrap my shoulder blades onto my spine? And then everything just floats off the mat for a breath. As you exhale, you can just rotate and rest your cheek to one side. And then try that again. So I've got glutes, hamstrings, core. My back is on, where my shoulder blades are connecting, and then switching sides. And this doesn't have to be a super long move, just finding a nice little hover in between. Whole back body, nice little reverse for kind of the world. And then we'll try one more like this. And then we'll come into a little bigger extension. So if you don't have a ring, you're gonna do hands closer means more extension, hands further is less. You'll press down through the tops of the feet and you'll extend the chest up. So here's my full kind of swan dive extension. If that feels too crazy today, keep your elbows down and go for a little supported extension. If you like extension, so kind of, if you guys like extension, you can take your fitness ring and you can walk it in front of you, and then you'll activate pressing down and you'll come into your swan dive with the arms in front. So feel free if this angle is a little too tight for shoulders, you can walk those hands out. What supports my extension? My abs definitely do. My glutes and my hamstrings support my extension. So whether I'm doing it with the ring or with no props at all, if my bum is totally relaxed, you're gonna feel it in your back right away. So see if you can find your glutes, find your core. This is back work, but not back pain, ideally. Once you've taken a couple of those guys, the ring's kind of nice. Do one more of those. And then we'll take another child's pose. So you can ditch your prop if you have it, press back. Let's take a little side bend. So we'll bring the arms out to the right and shift the hips to the left. If your head doesn't quite hit the ground, if you've got a blocker ball, you can put it under your forehead. You can also make a little fist with your back hand and just rest your head on it. And then try the other side here. Easy breath. And come back to center for one more. And then we'll walk the hands to support us all the way back up. So we're just gonna do a couple kneeling things to finish. If kneeling isn't groovy, you could also come up to full standing. So ring or ball, either one works. If you've got your ring, you're gonna pop it under your, just kind of on your floating ribs, just under your chest, and just kind of relax those elbows. And we're just gonna do a twist. So just gonna exhale to twist to one side, come back through center and exhale to twist to the other side. If you've got the ball, same but different, just have a little lower elbow position. So as you're twisting, notice if the whole body twists in one piece. Can you find that your chest spirals first and that your opposite glute, or rather same side glute, has to turn on to keep your hip forward? So you're gonna try to rotate and if I rotate to the left, my left hip is gonna come forward a little bit more. And you're gonna lose rotation if you get into this position, which is why kneeling is pretty hard. So if you feel like you're about to fall over a cliff, then it's a little dramatic. That's the place you wanna be. So you're really having to work the core as you twist from side to side. Kneeling is pretty tricky. There's not a lot of space. Let's try one more. When you are even, we're gonna take the arms forward. So again, you could do this with the ball or the band. We're gonna push the arms forward and we're gonna round the upper back. And I get to push my weight back a little bit into maybe my shins, or if my toes are tucked, a little bit more weight into my toes. Then I'm gonna squeeze the ring, pull it into my chest, and lift my chest. We're getting a little protraction, retraction here. So I'm pressing the ring away, rounding the upper back, and then squeezing the ring, pulling it to me, finding that retraction. Try 3 more like this. So we're pushing away, and then squeezing into the ball, finding that retraction, lifting the sternum. So here's your flexion versus extension, right? So when I flex, my shoulders tend to protract. And when I extend, I can get that nice retraction. Last one here. Nice, we'll take a little side bend. So you can bring your ring to your right side. And then we'll take the left hand to either like forehead or back of the head, depending on how the shoulder's feeling. And then we're gonna side bend and just gently press into that ring. Yeah, and you can use it more as like support. So think about the goal being more to get the stretch through this side of the body versus really crushing the ring. And if you've got the ball, got 2 options here. You can squeeze the ball as you side bend, so you're getting a little feedback, ball to hip. And you can also sit with your mermaid legs and you can take it out and in. Let's just do one more to this side. And then we'll pop that to the other side. So we've got ring, hand in front or behind the head. And then we're gonna take that little side bend. Yeah, so you're just getting some nice support. I like to think of it almost as like a side reach. So the more you reach that shoulder and rib up to the ceiling, you should feel a pretty big stretch through this whole side body. Do you feel a stretch here? Nice. How's the breath in the stretch? Does it exist? So something I notice is a lot of times I'll go into side bend and I'll go, and then I just won't breathe for the rest of it. So if you breathe the whole time, it actually is a little nicer. And if you find the ribs wanting to pop, see if you can just bring those ribs down a little bit more. Yeah, because a lot of the times the restrictions, the flexibility here at the top of the shoulder, kind of the front of the chest. And when you finish your last one, you can ditch that guy. And I'll leave you guys there. Yeah, nice work today. Thanks for playing. Thanks for coming.